There are moments when a family does not collapse from a single revelation, but from the precise instant someone chooses the wrong person to carry the truth. And in Fairmont Crest, that person becomes Bill. Not Vernon, not Anita, but the outsider who stands close enough to see everything and distant enough to be sacrificed when it all burns. And that is exactly why the package arrives in his hands. Wrapped not as a threat, but as an invitation, a quiet provocation disguised as coincidence. Because whoever sent it understands that Bill is the only one who will hesitate, the only one who will question before he destroys, and that hesitation is the most dangerous weapon anyone can exploit. Inside the box, there is nothing explosive in appearance. No weapon, no obvious scandal, just fragments that should not exist together. A faded photograph, a legal document bearing an altered date, and a DNA report that does not scream its truth, but whispers it in a way that forces the mind to complete the horror on its own. And that is what makes it devastating, because it suggests something impossible yet undeniable, that Leslie may not be an intruder to the Dupree legacy, but a missing piece of it, a bloodline hidden, denied, or buried so deeply that even time itself has begun to forget who erased it. The recording is worse, because it sounds in all the ways that matter: imperfect breathing, hesitation, a voice that trembles, Vernon speaking not as a patriarch, but as a man cornered by his own past. And yet there is something slightly off, a distortion too subtle to prove manipulation, but too deliberate to ignore, leaving Bill suspended between belief and doubt, knowing that if it is true, it destroys Vernon, but if it is false, it still destroys him for ever allowing himself to believe it. And that is the brilliance of the trap, because the truth no longer matters, only the reaction does. Bill's anger does not come from the possibility of betrayal, but from the realization that he has been chosen as the instrument of it, that someone wants him to be the one who breaks this family open, and that realization collides violently with his shifting loyalty, with the fragile, complicated place he has carved for himself between Anita's guarded acceptance and Vernon's reluctant respect. And now that fragile place begins to fracture, because the blessing Vernon recently gave him no longer feels like trust. It feels like positioning, like placing him exactly where he needed to be when the storm arrived. Leslie, meanwhile, stands at the center of a truth she may no longer fully understand. Her rage no longer just fueled by rejection, but by the terrifying possibility that her entire life has been shaped by a lie so large that it required multiple people to maintain it. And if she is Vernon's daughter, then every insult, every dismissal, every obstacle placed in her path becomes something far more deliberate, something cruel, something that cannot be forgiven. And that possibility transforms her from a woman fighting for power into someone fighting for identity itself. And that shift makes her infinitely more dangerous. Anita becomes the most fragile piece in this unraveling, because whether she knew or not no longer matters. What matters is how it will look when the truth surfaces. And in a world where perception is power, the more suggestion she protected Vernon or concealed Leslie's existence could destroy everything she has spent decades building. And the tragedy of it is that Anita may be both innocent and complicit at the same time. A woman who chose silence without understanding the full cost of what that silence would become. The timing is not random. It never is. Because secrets of this magnitude are never released without purpose, and whoever sends that package understands the exact moment when the Dupree family is most vulnerable, when alliances are shifting, when Bill is uncertain, when Leslie is already pushing against the walls, and when Vernon is just beginning to believe he has regained control. And that is when control becomes an illusion, because the real attack is not the truth itself, but the chaos that follows it. Bill faces the most dangerous decision of all, not whether to confront Vernon, but whether to become the man who exposes the truth or the man who buries it. And both choices demand a betrayal, either of the family that has begun to accept him or of the truth that now refuses to let him go. And that internal fracture is what begins to consume him, because every move he will make will confirm exactly what his enemies already believe. That he will be pushed, manipulated, turned into a weapon against the very people he is trying to protect. And as the tension tightens, one truth becomes unavoidable, that this was never about revealing a secret. It was about choosing who would be destroyed by it. And in the end, the cruelest possibility lingers over everything, that one who loses the most may not be Vernon or Anita or Leslie, but Bill himself, the man who was never meant to belong, now forced to decide whether he will finally claim a place within his family or be the one who tears it apart beyond repair.